Howdy, folks, and welcome to our Tuesday Live. I am here today with Zach from An American Homestead. Say hi, Zach.
How's it going, everybody?
All right, we got John Willis from Special Operations Equipment, and I am
Guys?
Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee. And this is going to be a fun conversation. Zach has been awesome. I reached out to him like a week ago. Yeah, I reached out to him a week ago. He's like, "Sure, I'll jump on," and I took 4 days to answer because I've become a midwife to sheep in the last 7 days and had almost every problem you can, which was an interesting week. And he was like, "Yeah, I know how that goes. We can talk about sheep on this call today." And then he's like, "Well, let's talk about news of the time." And so, of course, instantly something major happened. So let's talk. So what happened last night at 1:30 in the morning Eastern time?
Well, I mean, just from everything we've seen, I mean, there's all kinds of speculation. Was this intentional? Was it not intentional? Was it an accident? And to be honest, accidents do happen. But with all the things that have been going on, I saw a comment on Twitter before I jumped on here, and it was someone who said, whether this was intentional or unintentional, this is the result of Atlas Shrugged, and it's just a matter of watching this decay continue, and it's going to continue, and it's because we have just gone so far off the rails. I just watched before we jumped on also the response from Pete Buttigieg off at the White House, and he was talking about, I'm not kidding you, he was talking about how, well, this is a result of the bridge not being designed correctly because it was racist. The designers were racist, and it was taking, it was a bridge designed to take minorities across. I'm like, what world are you living in? What, I don't know how do you compute anything that's coming out of your mouth? This makes no sense, but this is the world we're living in. It's the movie Idiocracy that has come to pass in real terms. It's absolutely insane.
I didn't know that there were racist bridge designs.
Oh yeah, apparently the guy who wrote the Star Spangled Banner named after the bridge, Francis Scott Key, blatant racist, and it's his fault that the bridge collapsed. So
you'll have the federal white supremacy squad out there soon to protest something. They'll roll those guys out next.
Yeah, the Fed boys.
Yeah.
So that's what we're watching today, and I'm beside myself at the response from the government. And Russia came out in the last 24 hours saying that basically we believe that Western influence may have played a part in their tragedy that they just experienced. And so is this a retaliation? Was there some sort of hack? It looks really crazy when you speed up that video and that ship all of a sudden loses power and then immediately turns into that pier. It's absolutely crazy.
The reality is none of us know. And when the person that does know the truth, we probably wouldn't believe it. Just the fact that things are so absolutely insane and progressively getting more and more insane. Just the fact that the normal US citizen would think that there is something, some conspiracy or something. It's not hard to believe. I mean, look at what happened from 2019, 2020. Like everything they said was actually flip-flopped, and it's coming out, and that we are in a position in the United States right now where nobody trusts the government. Like you don't name something that they did for you in the last, 24 months. Name something that they did for you that was of benefit. When you actually find out, when the threads actually unravel, it's actually the polar opposite. I'm not worried about TikTok and China knocking on my door. It's my government I'm worried about. I'm not worried about China. I'm not worried about Russia. We see the guys on my live feed every night. There's dudes from Russia on the live feed every single night, and they're like, "Hey, what's your position on Russia?" And who knows who they really are? But
well, one of the things I've often talked about on my channel, I'm wearing my homeschool dad t-shirt today. And as a coordinator of my homeschool at my home here, I decide what's going to be the curriculum. And I put a very large emphasis on history. It's because I love history. And people who know history will understand kind of the prism of what they're seeing today in our world today. Some of my favorite YouTube channels are about history channels, history documentaries that are on YouTube. And as things progress and things are declassified that happened in our past, especially World War II and some of the things that were going on back then, there were so many operations on all sides, whether it was Japan, whether it was Germany, whether it was America, so many operations that were completely covered up and not talked about, and they were classified, and that are just now coming to light because documents are being declassified. And you see all of the things that our government and other governments were involved in that people back then, when they lived, never, ever knew about. So I'm transferring that today in the world that we live in. How many things are going on right now behind the scenes that these governments are involved in, that they're coordinating, that they're setting up, that we will never know the real story about. And I place what happened today in that category.
And the disinformation is so much more rapid now, and you're just constantly bombarded. How do you even know what the truth is?
But it's a lot harder to hide today because we have these things. We can view that ship, losing power and colliding into that pier. And so we can see, so it's harder to cover things up, or at least keep people from questioning what they're seeing. Whereas before, back then, all you heard about was whatever was written in the paper under some government censor. And that's all you had to go by, or maybe a personal, firsthand account witness or something like that. But other than that, you had no idea. So it's stuff like that. It's crazy.
Absolutely. With Twitter and TikTok, you can almost get a polar opposite. Media Matters. I know you're well aware of Media Matters. You've been quoted and somewhat, I would say, attacked. And you just take whatever they're saying and you just jump on that other platform, and you'll get the other angle. When I woke up this morning, I saw the barge thing happening, hit the bridge, and you see that little sliver, and then immediately below it is, here's the other angle and what they don't want you to see. And you see a whole lot longer of the video from what they had just cut, that little sliver.
It was funny that Media Matters article came out and talking about how I had claimed that illegal aliens, could buy firearms. And then the next day, or that week, at least a couple of days later, they came out and said, the government officially said, the court has ruled that they can buy guns. And so it's like, where's the conspiracy? This is what I said was real all along.
Yeah, well, they took issue with you calling them illegal aliens because they don't call them illegal aliens. Right. They went on to say that you were a proponent of being able to actually execute them. I mean, absolutely nutso.
Yeah, I think I have this crazy belief that I think you should be able to defend yourself. And why are we arming people who do not have the best interest of our country, allowing them to come in, arm themselves? Those guns are going to be pointed at us at some point. And not only at us, but our law enforcement, because there are good law enforcement out there. There are people who just want to be able to keep their community safe. And I think that that's changing. But at the same time, it's like those guns and those munitions will be pointed at us at some point.
Another New York police officer, I believe, was shot and killed by a guy that they'd released 27 times. I believe that happened yesterday or this morning at some point.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's nuts. But, again, the mainstream media has their narrative and they have to uphold it. But again, the good news is we have Twitter. We have some things we can be like, okay, I'm calling BS on this, and I don't agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're having a hard time trying to keep all that information on the down low these days.
Yeah.
Well, they can't. I mean, that's the whole thing with the TikTok thing. And that's what they're after is being able to control that. They can control. We know they've been busted out controlling Meta, and they want control of the other platforms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. They want complete control of all information. That's why you see a lot of these politicians out there, especially the ones who are very much entrenched into the modern media and the deep state, whatever you want to call it, about how we have to pass, internet IDs and things like that. Because once you have an internet ID, you can control you can shut these people down. If they have a voice we don't like, we can shut it down. And I'm scared, because I'm a website owner. I'm on YouTube and I'm on some other platforms. I'm worried about the future of my company because An American Homestead is a company. We are an off-grid home. I view myself as an educator when it comes to homesteading. And so if I say things that these people don't like down the road, and right now you're seeing all these things like water catchment and owning chickens or livestock and things like that being called into question as, are these things needed by this DC culture or this World Economic Forum culture? I worry about the future of my own business and my own livelihood and what I've set up here.
You know, I
Absolutely.
just got into contact with a company called American Cloud, who is motivated to help people like us who go out on the internet and say what we want to say, but who are afraid of, you know, the Amazon GoDaddy cancel. I haven't really dug into their systems much, but they're coming. We have an event in 2 weeks called Self-Reliance Festival. They're coming to that. And I'm pretty excited because for the last, ever since the big Donald Trump moment, I've been looking at like, how can I cancel proof things a little bit better than they are? And I've resorted to serving things outside the country because the government doesn't have the same command and control rights as that point. But if these guys are legit, like I'm stoked to check out their stuff and start thinking about migrating out.
And I'm worried even about that. And I'll tell you why. And it's because, you know, right now you have these hosting companies that can turn you off. Like Google can censor me. Google has censored me. So like I'm search results and things like that. I'm way down on the list on things unless you really search for me specifically. But you know, there's a company. It's been trying to launch for the last number of years. And they can't get hosting. They can't get banking because if they go to a host, like a large hosting provider like Amazon, because they have their own web services that you can jump on board, Amazon makes them sign agreements that we can limit your speech. We can only certain topics can be talked about, and they don't want to do that. And so the banks won't give them access to be able to, you know, transact with that platform because of what they want. They want to be able to be a free speech platform. So I worry about some of these companies that want to come up and what they're going to be fighting, you know, through in order to operate. But you know, this is the world we find ourselves in.
Are you aware of Public Square?
No, I'm not. Haven't heard
There's
that
an
one.
app called Public Square. The guy was out of San Diego. They actually had a rep at SRF a couple of events ago, and it's all freedom minded. So you can look it up through, I believe they have banking, venue, food, clothing, and you can just look at the area and basically freedom minded. They don't have any, if you're not a Second Amendment supporter, you can't be on there, right? If you have regulations and stipulations of firearm carry in your store, if you required your people to take the thing, or if you required masks. So even during the high point of lockdowns and stuff, these guys were like, hey, kind of a speakeasy type deal. We are freedom minded. You come in here. We are not requiring this. You are welcome here. And it grew. They started, I think they had 7 million on the first year, and I think they're on the third year now. And they're making their rounds, man. They're on Tim Pool and Crowder and all the big
and what's
stuff.
it again? I'll check it out.
Public SQ.
Public Square. Okay.
Yep. It looks like a little square, and it's Public SQ on the app stores. But then again, it comes through the app stores, right? So they could actually remove that as well.
Yeah, you'll need to be internet based. And I looked into some of this blockchain domains that exist out there. And I'm questioning whether or not that's actually viable or how that will work. I mean, it's all going to, you know, we'll have to wait and see. The one reality, again, going back to history, is that when people are suppressed, when people are, you know, limited in their liberty and freedom throughout history, they do find ways to, you know, break out of that or to find ways around it. And subvert that. So I think, you know, there's high hope, especially with the mentality that we have here in America. I think Americans are just cut from a different cloth. We do not like to be controlled. I know there's a lot of people out there who are sheep these days who just go with the flow. That last few years have showed us that, right? But I mean, there are a number of people who are like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to play this game. I'm not going to obey. I'm not going to, you know. And so I think that time will tell, and we'll see how things shake out. And, you know, all we can do is watch the show.
Well, it's hard to find examples that endure for a long time where the totalitarian regime takes over and really stays in control because the underground networks bubble up. There is that spirit of wanting to be free in people. Whether we think we can program it out of them or not, you can't program it out of everybody.
Right. I agree. I absolutely agree.
That fuse is lit. They want you to think that you're the minority, but there's a ton of you. Every time we come together, the events are always packed. But typically, I call it our side, but our side is busy raising families and running businesses and actually growing things, whereas the other side is not. And then the social media, which is how everybody gets their news and it stays in contact now, they amplify the smallest group to make it look like it's very large. And it's just to kind of make you think that there is no chance of winning or continuing. But if you look at just local Facebook groups, everybody has so many chickens that they are giving away chicken eggs. Everybody has so much milk that there are cow shares everywhere. Even if you have to sell it as plant supplement or pet food, depending on regulations, but it's out there, man. They cannot control it. And I think like the whole bird flu thing, they were going around and harassing backyard flocks. They were harassing, I think they went after Stromberg's and a few other places. And they went in and they PCR tested that stuff, ramped that up, and just shut down all those poultry farms. But it's still here. Like they were talking about having to vaccinate and interstate commerce, and you wouldn't be able to get chickens through the mail anymore. It'll ramp back up. They'll come back after that. Here in Tennessee, they're trying to pass a bill that they have to say how much vaccination is in produce. And people were very up in arms about that. But what that's making them do is they are having to admit they already have mRNA on the shelf in produce. We need to label it so that people are aware of what's there. And it made them admit to it. Hey, this actually is in the stores right now. I think people are starting there. Well, we know people are waking up to it, but everybody's like, when are we going to fight? When are we going to unite? We're busy. We're like, we are the people. You have both sides. You have people with calluses. You have people that produce a product that others willingly seek out to do commerce. And then you have the bureaucrats who only are able to exist. DMV is a perfect example because they steal money from the guys that work with their hands and actually create something. So I don't know what the answer is, but I mean, we just keep going and we keep having the conversations, and they definitely are, as the article that was written naming you. I mean, they're definitely concerned with that, or they wouldn't be drawing attention to you. I would assume that you gained a lot of supporters and a lot of traffic because it always backfires on them.
Well, I did gain some. There was a bump, but YouTube has this shadow banned, and so I don't know. It's about a year and a half ago. I really stopped getting more subscribers. If I get an influx of subscribers, they'll go through and unsubscribe a bunch of people to keep me kind of in the same ballpark. I should be over 1 million at this point. But I've been I hit a ceiling a while back, and I've just never, and in my videos too, before I even hit the subscriber ceiling that they didn't want me to get above, my videos were, shadow banned, and people talk about how my videos don't come up. I mean, there's people like John Kohler too, he's a good guy on YouTube, and he's got, I don't know how many subscribers, but his views are so small because YouTube won't allow stuff like that he produces to come up in feeds. And, I think different people are shadow banned in different ways. But it's the world we're living in. But I think that all of this government control that we're seeing when it comes to livestock and chickens and all this stuff going on right now, like I just did a video recently about Pennsylvania. This is the same state, obviously, that's doing the Amish farmer wrong. But now their health department has come out and says we need to cut down on chickens because they may be contributing to a rodent problem. And I'm like, what about all the people who put up bird feeders? I'm like, all that stuff falls to the ground. Squirrels are eating it. All the other rodents are eating it too. That causes more of a rodent problem than anything your chickens are going to do. And I made the point in my video that, I've had chickens for years, and a mouse runs across the coop. They are tearing that thing to shreds. They are just as good almost, and sometimes better than cats. There's no way this is causing a rodent problem. But
no, chickens are vegetarian, don't you know?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. But no, it's like what the reality is, they don't want you to be able to feed yourself. They don't like the fact that you have this independence. And these are a bunch of PETA worshiping, liberals who are trying to figure out ways to rein you in and rein that self-sufficiency attitude in. But all they're doing is making people angry.
I would take it a step further that's even more insidious than that. By taking your food supply away, you have to eat theirs, and they can control what is in theirs. If you look, Tyson just came out and said, we are going to be vaccinating. Chick-fil-A came out yesterday and said, we're no longer following our first point. We are going to be using vaccination dependent, right? If we have sick animals, we are going to vaccinate them, but we are no longer going to say that we're using, non-vaccinated chicken. So Chick-fil-A is gone for people that were like using that. Tyson, which is clearly the devil. Everybody knows all the crazy Tyson stuff that's gone on through the years, and Purdue and all those guys. but it's just one by one ticking that off. We know that they are vaccinating that stuff. We know there's mRNA stuff in there, and we know they're putting hormones in those things. And your ability, it's about removing your ability. And at the same time, you have the 15-minute cities and the smart cities, and people go, oh, that's not happening. It's absolutely happening.
Yes, it is
happening all over the place. So to take away your ability, and that's what every dystopian novel, every book, every even piece of history, if you look at Holodomor, it was the same thing. Push them to the cities, fence the farmers, starve the farmers to death, and then take all the feed to feed the cities. And I would say that it is that in play. If you look at Agenda 21, when Alex Jones and all those guys, tinfoil hat and all this crazy stuff, every single piece of Agenda 21 came to be. And then 2030 and 35. And it's right in sequence, man.
Well, they have to keep renaming it, though, because they put out the lofty goals. They don't quite make it. They start being vilified, and then smart cities become 15-minute cities. But the smart cities have existed for 20 years. Like, I came from a smart city to get out of it, right? And now it's like, oh, now it's a 15-minute city, but I know darn well you can't get anywhere in that city in 15 minutes because of the traffic problems they created. But they won't admit that.
It's beyond that. If you look at China, you can't leave your 15-minute city.
Right.
Like, literally can't go through the gate. They have facial recognition scanning. There are no vehicles. You live and work within 1 mile range. You entertain. You're only allowed to leave the city twice a year. You're not allowed to fly. Now, when you, Nicole, say smart city, that is not at all what is coming. Like, what is coming is something very different than what you're talking about when you say you came from a smart city. And there's one going into, I believe they're building something in Nashville. There's something in
Chattanooga.
Is it? I think it's further. I thought it was the other one. Not Chattanooga, the other one. Knoxville.
Yeah, but Chattanooga, they are actively instilling the 15-minute city agenda.
Yeah, good. Let them lock them in.
There's those C40 cities. Like, I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. The C40 program, but there's a lot of cities on there that aren't listed. Like, they have official cities that are listed on the C40 list. And then there's other cities that have mayors that are signing on to that, but they're not necessarily, on that list, but they're still pushing out that plan. That's their goal. I mean, it was Pittsburgh the other day. The Pittsburgh mayor came out and talked about how he's implementing a lot of the C40. He signed up to this, but he's not on the official list, but he's still implementing what their goals are. So it's just crazy, but that's where they're going.
Yeah. They're buying those guys off. They're bribing them, or they have something on them, or they just want to stay in that position. The rules for thee, not for me. The guy in power doesn't have to follow any of that stuff. So of course he'll take the money to buy off on all of that.
Oh yeah. He's going to keep eating steak. He's going to keep eating whatever he wants to eat, but you're going to be eating gruel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean,
don't forget the crickets.
Oh yeah. It's cricket gruel.
and with the poisons and everything, I mean, of course it knocks the testosterone down. So if we can control what we feed you, I mean, they did the same thing in World War II. They were dosing all the wells in the villages with fluoride, before, so it just takes away the will to fight. So if we can,
as I mentioned, we just got back from St. Louis. We went to the homeschool conference there, and we had to stay there for a good 4 days or so. And there's just you eat some food that you don't normally eat. And I came back and I was having issues breathing a little bit. I was having some aches and pains in my feet and legs, and I was just like, "What is going on?" And it's like, it's the food. It's the food that I was eating there. I don't eat this stuff normally. I don't even like going to town when I'm on the homestead. But I go to these events sometimes, and I go to speaking events throughout the year. And it's just like, when I'm there, I have to really guard myself about what I'm eating or what environment I'm at. Just staying in a hotel and because I live off grid, right? All of this is powered by my solar panels and batteries. And I've been living off grid now for, since 2012. And so it's like, now when I go back to these cities, and I all of the lights and all of the RF and all the stuff going through the air, I feel it. My kids feel it. Within like a day and a half, my kids are like, "When are we getting back to the homestead?" And so
the noise, it's so loud. Even though it's just a loud white noise all the time.
Yeah, so my body feels it, and when you remove yourself from that, and then you go back to it, you really feel it. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. But everything you're eating out there, you got to be careful about what you're looking at, what you're eating, and reading labels. And I was never a label reader, but man, I don't pick up anything. Even if I trust it, I always still look at the labels because you don't know if they've changed it. I mentioned this on a video recently too, where there was one brand of chili that I still bought today in the store because sometimes, as a parent, you want to have an easy meal that you can just give the kids, pop open the can and make some chili, throw it in a pot, add maybe a little bit of this and that to it. But I picked it up the other day and now they're putting soy stuff in there and all the stuff that they didn't put in there before. I'm like, what in the world? It was the last brand that I trusted and now it's gone. Yep. And you're slowly being whittled out of things that are good for you, or you thought was good for you.
And soy is not grown without glyphosate. It's
right. It's all every single bit of it.
Let's kill everything on multiple acres, like nuke it all and then grow food in that and then harvest it with glyphosate. Absolutely. Yeah. That's how that works.
Do you have your little lamb with you?
Yeah, my little lamb is so far she's done about 5 ounces.
We were talking off camera and she said she's got a bottle baby that she's got to take care of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the attack on homesteaders? Like we keep hearing everybody's making videos about this children's child protective agencies saying they had some homeschool family's child was being abused and we've got to get in here and we've got to check this and we've got to shut these. We keep doing the same thing over the last week. Was there any discussion of that?
Not there. They did bring John Lovell in from Warrior Poet Society. And I'm getting ready to put up a video here later on today that just talked about how when I first got there was just a huge crowd. It looked like it was more than last year who came to this convention. And John spoke that night. He was kind of like the headliner, John Lovell from Warrior Poet Society. He's got like 1.5 million subscribers. Anyway, he has a message that's full of truth, but it's a message that can be hard on the ears because it's not this itchy thing, itching ears type message. And so he presents a lot of reality. He presents a lot of truth. And I think some people were probably turned off by that. And I noticed throughout the rest of the weekend that the numbers were down. It looked like to me. And I wonder if that's because, they're just a lot of people aren't ready for that message. My point being is, yes, they are attacking because he's a homesteader. He has his own animals. He has young boys he's raising. They do chores every day like any homesteader would do. And so, but there is this attack that is being levied at people who are trying to have a more self-sufficient lifestyle, more independent lifestyle, who can see the dangers at our stores when it comes to groceries and say, you know what, I'm just going to grow maybe a little bit of stuff on my own and raise a few animals and have that as an alternative. Or some people are going full bore into, doing totally that. But my point is, it's becoming such a problem now that the big guns are turning towards that culture group and are firing everything they have at them. Like you mentioned with the Media Matters article. So people who raise chickens, people who raise livestock, we had this, they're saying it's a conspiracy theory, but we all know how that goes about how ear ID tags for livestock. So digital and RFID tags for ears. So a lot of homesteaders, including myself, will have ear tags just as a way to keep track of our animals. The whole animal husbandry is very important, right? Especially if you raise animals, you want to make sure that herd stays healthy.
Yeah, just the genetics of it, so we know who's offspring.
Yeah.
Right. But what they want to do is like, okay, you're doing ear tags. We want RFID tags. We want those registered so that we know where you are. We know how many you have at all times, and now we can come and shut you down if we want to. Now they're not saying that part, but we all know that's where registration leads, right? So yeah, you're seeing that with livestock. You're seeing that with chickens. We need to get rid of your chickens because of the health of the entire communities at stake, because your chickens might be infected. And we've just done a test, and lo and behold, the test came back positive that you now have bird flu in your coop. And so you're going to have to shut down your coop. You're going to have to tear it down. You're going to have to get rid of your birds. So I won't go there.
Well, in the height of the Soviet Union, farmers were part of the mass centralized planned production method. And they did, in fact, track every single animal. And so your most powerful underground network person was the veterinarian who could declare an animal dead. So he could declare, so they were called ghost animals, right? He'd declare it dead, and then the community could share that animal. But they had to track every single thing and hit production goals. And that's, just imagine what they could have done with the kind of technology we have
But
today.
Stalin, deliberately starved millions of people to
Yes.
death. And, I've told this story before on my channel, that there was an instance where he had a meeting of his generals and a meeting of some of his underlings, and he had this chicken brought in, and he basically plucked the chicken alive in front of everyone at that meeting, just completely plucked all the feathers out of that chicken. And then he let go of the chicken and it ran into a corner. And then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a handful of grain and let it down to the chicken. The chicken came over and ate out of his hand. And then he turned to all of his generals and to all of his civil servants that were around him and says, people are the exact same way. And that's how you need to be able to treat the people.
Yep.
And that's communism. It's always been that way. And that's what we're seeing our government morph into today, that if you want sustenance, we will give it to you in the way we want to give it to you.
Yeah, nobody's been pressure tested. They're too comfortable. As long as this thing runs, as long as they have amusement, entertainment, that they're going to go right along with it. I mean, they do go right along with it.
No, absolutely they do. But it's water catchment too. It's like water catchment systems, like in Oregon, they're shutting down all these small farms. Have you seen this in the last week?
Yep.
All these small farms are being shut down and told that they can no longer. How are they going to? These are small farms that raise small gardens. And what I mean by small garden, I'm not talking about your little backyard garden. I'm talking about like, an acre or two small farms. And they have some animals, maybe a few hundred chickens instead of like our backyard 30 chickens, But these are small farms and they sell to their direct community, and they're being given cease and desist orders because of your water catchment. And that's what they're using to water these animals or to water their gardens. And they're being told you can't do that anymore because we have to save the planet. And we're going to save the planet by making sure you can't feed your community anymore.
And it's funny. I'm from Oregon, by the way, originally. And that movement was afoot before I left. I left 18 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And it was interfering with the waterways to collect rainwater from your roof and use it on your garden. Now, if we look at the science of that, that's not really true. Like eventually you're watering with it and it's going back into the water system, but that's what they were accusing us with. So when I heard that was happening, I'm like, yep, I totally see why.
Yeah, it's not like I'm collecting the water and sending it into outer space where it's never going to, be used by the earth ever again. No, it's getting there. It's just I'm using it how I want to so that it gets there the way I want to, because it's my land and it's my right to be able to feed my animals and water my garden so I can grow food. But again, this is all about independence and self-sustainability that they don't want you to have.
What state are you in?
I'm in Arkansas.
Arkansas.
It's a pretty red state. So the idea, and they even have some of these ordinances and rules here, but the reality is Arkansas is kind of like a third world country where they don't have any money for enforcement.
Yeah, we're in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. We're between Memphis and Nashville. Same deal.
Yeah, it's a good state here. There's a lot of common sense in the Missouri Ozarks as well. Missouri has a lot of crazy ordinances and rules and things like that. But again, you have people who like to think independently. And a lot of those people are still in places of authority, thank goodness. And we can, common sense thinking still is alive here in a lot of this part of the country.
Yeah, it encroaches. You get people in city council that try to change things and want to change things. And the guys that are just doing stuff don't want to be on city council. And we don't want to go to Court Square and to the courthouse. And we just kind of continue to do our things, but it encroaches. And then they want to annex everything. They want to take all, like we have no codes or zoning here, but that's only a matter of years until that changes.
Well, it's like you said, these politicians really aren't fearing their populace anymore.
Right.
That used to be the case when the bureaucrats were feared, or were the people, right now, the people fear the government. That's the wrong answer. The government should be fearing the people, and we don't have that fear, anymore.
There are more of us than them. Like there's a point where if we just start doing what we're doing, like they can do some things. But I think part of why the smaller homes, like it starts with the chicken, right? This has happened before in our history, that the chicken in the backyard is the target of the regulation because one homesteader standing up is mostly meaningless. But if 2 million homesteaders stand up, then it starts to become a problem.
Yeah, and it's the same way with the homeschooling too. We have homeschooling as a giant voting block that didn't exist 4 years ago, and it's because of all the insanity we went through that now we have this voting block. And now you're seeing all of these people come out with articles about why homeschooling needs to be regulated. It's the same way with homesteading, that these things need to be regulated because there are so many people who are leaving the cities, leaving these blue states, and they're starting to be more independent. And now it's a danger zone for these people who want total control. But as all things throughout history go, you push and you push and you push and you push, and finally someone says, "I've been pushed enough." And they get in bulldozers and weld metal plates all over them, and then they have their way with the town. But it takes time to get to that point. You have to be pushed so far when you realize that my life is over. What's the point of going on anyway? I'm just going to take as many as I can with them.
Even the people still in that town in Colorado think that guy's a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Even the dispatcher, Whistling Diesel, just bought a Komatsu just like that, trucked it 1,600 miles out of the way to go through that town. And he did interviews with a lot of the people that were there that day, and they still see that guy as a hero.
Yeah, he is. And most of the country, as they learn about that story, they see him as a hero too. Once they realize, well, he said something, and I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but you can find it on like Wikipedia and on the internet, where he's like, I was just pushed too far, and what else can I do? I was a man that had no options left, and so that's what he did. And I think Alexander Solzhenitsyn said something along the same lines. It's like the man who is pushed too far, eventually does what a man who's pushed far does. And, but we're not there yet. But right now we're all kind of like in awe of our country crumbling around us and watching that happen. And we haven't come to the realization yet. This is a result of policy. This is a result of being too soft. This is a result of stupid not hurting, because stupid needs to hurt. And we have a country run by a bunch of bureaucrats and lawyers. And Shakespeare said, "Kill all the lawyers," because they're going to make your life difficult. And that's what we have. We have a country that's founded by lawyers and bureaucrats.
Didn't they say there's 8 million families didn't send their kids to public school this year? Isn't
the
number that that's 8 million new people having that conversation. It's just like the gun ban conversation. They say, "Hey, we're going to take all of this," and then they go, "Oh, we're just going to take okay, you can just have this. We'll just give you this. At least it's not this, right?" And then they do more and more and more, and they'll never take them all away because nobody's going to obey any of the laws. You're going to realize that they have no enforcement. It's just like you sent $40 billion of my dollars to Ukraine. No, they sent $40 billion they created to Ukraine. They just continue to tax you so that you stay involved in the system, so that the system has the appearance that it's actually real and still continues to exist. They say that if 1% of people, just 1%, showed up to dispute traffic tickets, you would completely collapse the entire system. They wouldn't be able to process it if just 1% of people disputed those tickets.
Yeah, I think we have a nation that does not know history. And because of that, they don't realize that this was a country that was basically founded on not giving up our guns. Yeah. The whole Lexington and Concord Bridge was about the guns. They were coming for the guns. And we said no. People said no, and a country was born. But that's not taught in schools. It's taxation without representation. That's why our country was founded. No, we were upset about that, and we were really upset about it. And that's one of the reasons why they said, "Okay, we're taking your guns away because you're really upset right now." And that's when America was born. When we said, "Oh, you come after our guns? No, we're not going to give up our guns." And now we're really mad. And so that's what happened. That's Lexington and Concord. But you're not going to be able to push that here in America. We're never going to give up our guns. At that point, that will be pushing it too far. People will be getting in bulldozers at that point.
Well, they want to make examples, right? It's just like the January 6th thing. They want to go after all of those grandmas and all those people and set an example of them so that other people who think they might go and do that, it makes them think twice. It's just like all the red flag laws, right? They can't go after all the guns.
Oh, did you see the thing that they put up the other day about the red flag laws?
Tell me.
The Justice Department put up a new red flag law, basically website where, you saw that?
They put $100 million into it. It was passed in the omnibus spending bill at midnight on Friday night. Kamala Harris is actually the figurehead of the department, and they are giving education to doctors and school teachers and other people on how to have conversations with your children about if mom and dad have firearms. And there's plenty of examples of red flag laws where a guy had left negative reviews on this dude's business, and that guy red flagged him, and they went in and no knocked and took all his guns. There's no process to that. They just take all of your stuff, and now you are prohibited while you go through the system. It's just like taking you into a psychological hospital. Law enforcement can drop your ass at a psychological hospital and you can be held for 72 hours for observation. And if they say, hey, take these pills, you're like, I'm not taking those pills. All of a sudden you find yourself in there longer and longer and longer. And how do you get out? I mean, what is the repercussion for that?
Yeah, well, the Justice Department is gone. There is no justice anymore. So there's no due process. But yeah, the thing with this website and this red flag law, it's not only that, it's just anybody who posts something online that gets reported could be construed as something that's dangerous. And now those guns have to be taken away. And that's scary in itself, that could happen without due process. But what's really scary is that you are pushing people now to the bulldozer phase, and there are good people really who just want to have a job and do their job, who work in the government. You're putting those people at risk of the bulldozer people.
Sure.
Because they're going to get caught up in this. And so, and again, going back to history, those tar and feathers that came out against the tax collectors and all these people, they didn't just happen to the tax collectors. They happened to their families. It happened to their families, their loved ones, their friends, their neighbors. Anyone they were associated with also got tarred and feathered. Do you understand the kind of horror you're bringing down upon yourselves and upon our country? And I don't think they do. But the whole point of my homestead, listen, I saw this years ago. I saw the trajectory of where this was going. I lived in St. Louis, and I said, I got to get out of here because I don't want to get caught up in this mess. And I tell people, find a hole, get your family, and crawl down in it, because this is going to happen. This is going to collapse. And what you want to do is be able to survive on the other side of it, because it's going to be a messy process when this collapse happens. We're $35 trillion in debt. There's no way that debt's going to be paid. An economic collapse is a cake that is already baked. And so if that being the case, and you have all this other control and stuff going on right now, you've got to get yourselves in a place where you can withstand and just weather the storm when it comes, so that one day you and your family can survive, and your kids can grow up and they can have maybe weak men create hard times, right? Well, that hard times eventually creates strong men, and the strong men create good times again. You want to get to the other side where you can see those good times again, or at least if not you, your family or your kids. Most
of your neighbors like-minded, I would take it.
Yeah, we have I live really way out here. There's no cell service wherever I live. I mean, you can get on the backside of my mountain. I'm on a mountaintop in the Ozarks, and you can get a limited cell service over there. But no, it's very remote. There are people here who are very conservative minded. There are a number of liberals in my county seat, but I think most of the justices of the peace who run our county are all very conservative. It's a very red state, and it's good people here. And all they want to do is just raise their families. All they want to do is pay their taxes, have some chickens, have some cows, have some sheep or goats or whatever, and just be left alone. They just want to earn a living and live life and be happy.
So what do you think the answer is?
Get your hole, get your family, and crawl down in it, because there is no saving this. You're $35 trillion in debt. That can never. There's only two ways you could fix that. There are two ways you could fix that. You could get Congress to stop spending money, which won't happen, and you can get the Fed to stop printing money, which won't happen. So, because we're too addicted, it's like a heroin. You're a crack addict, and you've got to keep that train running. And so if you pull that away, you will have a depression that will make the Great Depression look 10 times, 20 times, 100 times worse. The alternative is you keep going down that road, and you're going to get hyperinflation. And again, you're going to have a major fallout from that. That's going to make Zimbabwe look like a picnic. Yeah. So because I've told people on my channel, we're 35 trillion in debt. You are going to live in a day and age. Years ago, I said this, you're going to live in a day and age where you start to hear the word, when it comes to debt, described as in the quadrillions. And now they're saying that on mainstream media. The derivatives debt right now that our country has is in the quadrillions. There's no coming back from that.
So
So
we're not paying it off.
No, you can't. It's impossible. It's mathematical certainty. You can't do it. So my point being, what's the answer? Get a hole, get your family, and crawl down in it.
Yeah, get out of the cities.
Yeah.
Get out of the cities. Even the stuff in 2019 and the lockdowns, we didn't have any of that here. That's happening in the cities. We didn't have any fires. We didn't have any protests. We didn't have any of that stuff. That stuff didn't happen in little rural towns.
Yeah, it's just going to keep steamrolling. And again, like today, the bridge, is it intentional? Was it not intentional? Was it a terrorist? Was it hacked? Was it an accident? Was the ship captain just drunk at the wheel? Who knows? The reality is we keep seeing these things happen because this is Atlas shrugged. This is the shrugging of Atlas. And you're just witnessing what happens when you get so many people who are so morally bankrupt running your country. This is the end result that will happen every single time when you have that foundation. And that's where we are right now. We have that foundation of moral bankruptcy.
And incompetent.
Well, that goes along with moral bankruptcy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look at the aircraft that's just failing left and right.
No, yeah, it's like you have all these public school kids who have no high bar anymore. There's no standards in our education system, and they're putting together aircraft. No wonder they're falling apart mid-flight.
Yep. Okay, on the crash thing in Baltimore, I do have a question related that I'm going to fit in because we brought it back up. What is the other camera angle you're talking about, John Willis, on the?
I don't know who you are, John Davis. If you find me on Instagram, I'll send you some of the cuts from there.
There's multiple camera angles
all over the place right now. You should be able to find it.
That was a busy harbor. There's cameras everywhere.
Yeah, which is super cool. Mm-hmm. Well, getting down in your hole by yourself is not the best way, though.
No, you need a community. You need to have at least people around you that think the same way, or at least somewhat preparing in the same way, or who are open to that when it does go down, they can rely on each other for certain things, and just kind of be a network. One of the series we're running right now over at my website, An American Homestead.com, our patron level for Patreon is a series of ham radio classes, and just ham radio, not really classes because I'm not an expert in it. I've had my ham license since 2009, but I do have a number of things set up for that, and to be able to set up communications locally and with the strategy of being able to listen. I want to listen to be able to what's going on out there in the outside world, so that I can stay abreast of things that may involve me. And so having that network where you can communicate locally just with your neighbors on low power, that's an option for people to establish a community and then just stay in contact with it.
Yeah, allowed versus able too. I mean, our friend Radio Made Easy, Evan, he does a whole class without doing a license, teach you how to use all of that stuff, right? You can put stubby antennas to limit the range so you don't have, like, everybody thinks the sad hams is what everybody calls them.
I love that channel. Not a Rubicon. He's a great guy.
They're gonna come get you. They're gonna come get you. Man, it just hasn't happened. It's allowed versus able. It's just do what you need to do. Have the skill. Know how to do it. Have
you guys seen that book yet?
Yep.
It's an awesome book. Great book. Highly recommend it.
My wife printed out your PDFs on all the manuals we saw the other day. She printed all that out or downloaded it. We're going to actually have it bound into some books.
Yeah. Get them printed. There was a company I gave to my my patrons, and they're printing them off for my patrons. I mean, if you buy these on Amazon, they're over $1,000 a piece, or around $1,000 a piece. And it's because this information was written 100 years ago, and it's like, the pharmaceutical companies have done everything they possibly can to get this out of public domain, and they're very rare. And so you can get them in PDF form. I give them to my patrons if you sign up for Patreon. But anyway, it's stuff like that. There's so much great information that we could be learning while we're in that hole, with our families, to be able to survive this. You can't just crawl down in a hole by yourself and be a lone wolf and think you're going to make it out of here.
Yep. Yeah, you got to have that group, just like Bear has his group. We've got people here in our community. Tag from Life Done Free, he's got a whole group of people, and that's kind of the thing. Like when everybody says, "Oh, all these people are moving in from California." Well, we know when the properties come available. What if we actually had people we could plug into those properties so we had good neighbors coming in?
Exactly.
That's on us to do that, right? We can't.
Absolutely.
If we don't buy the property, or put one of our people on the property, have them buy it. We don't get to complain when we get somebody there that we don't want there.
No, I totally agree. And it's just a matter of, finding people and networking amongst people, on whatever social media that you have, that you can let people know that those things exist.
Yep.
So
how's the comments doing?
There's a lot of comments, but I just found some. So speaking of community, I just found somebody new in my area because I'm in the middle of Tennessee and Joe's in West Tennessee. And I'm like, you got to come to our meetings. So our meetings are free, second Saturday, 1 p.m. Holler Homestead. You can find us on the internet or connect with me at nicolesauce.com and just send me an email and I'll hook you up. But yeah, what we're doing is just working on getting homesteaders together once a month to share best practices. We did a seed exchange, like nothing, like totally insurrection level stuff here, seed exchanges.
Yeah.
Those are the people, like you heard, I had all the lamb drama. I had people I could call too and ask questions when things were happening. Because a lot of what we dealt with in the last week were things we've never had problems over the years. We've had them about 2 years.
What kind of sheep breed do you use?
I have St. Croix and Katahdin.
Okay.
So hair sheep. And we rotate them every 3 to 7 days. So we haven't had parasite pressure so far. And they just, like this time, it was all the things happen. We had multiple triplets, which is why I've got that little one. And I had to pull a stillborn for the first time. And but the mom is still okay. So that's good. And it's just, it's been a lot, but there was always somebody I could call. And that's because when homesteaders talk to homesteaders, you can get the real information, because if you go on the internet and Google that, it's not super useful. And you're not sitting in the pasture reading a book. That's not what's happening at that moment when you have a problem. So
yeah, when you have a problem right now. It's hard to do that research when that problem is happening.
Yeah, and even if you've read it, it's not like it's necessarily right. For me, I don't know how you are, but until I do it the first time physically, it's not completely locked in.
I've had really good luck with St. Croix. I made the mistake of actually introducing a Katahdin ram, and I think that really lessened the hardness of my herd. But the St. Croix was so hardy when it came to pest pressures and parasite pressures and things like that. And so I think that I'm definitely going to stick with the St. Croix from now on and just keep the herd as pure St. Croix. But I have had people up north who, off grid with Doug and Stacy, they have Katahdins and they do really well with it. But I think down where I'm at in the South, it's a little bit harder for the Katahdin to manage some of the parasite pressures and things like that.
Yeah, we've got a guy here locally that's had St. Croix for over 10 years. That he has managed without vaccinations or anything.
I haven't done any of that.
Yeah, we haven't either. We decided to get rid of our rams and start buying a ram from him once a year just to keep that genetic going, but also because I'm tired of managing rams, basically.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, rams are meant for freezer camp. That's
yeah, right. But I'm like, well, if somebody else does rams, why do I have to do rams? He's like 2 miles from my house. There's no point.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's like, you go, buddy.
St. Croix is what I have. That's what Doc Barry runs. I think he's got probably 100 of them right now. He has babies available. He hit us up last week, said, hey, I'm going to have some babies available here pretty soon if anybody local wants any of those. But we don't vaccinate ours. We've got 1 ram, 3 females, and then we had babies. Like my ram is with the females all the time. They had babies in the ice, in the snow. We didn't do anything. We walked out in the morning and we're like, that thing looks dead. And you walk up and it's not. It looks up at you and the mom's right there. We didn't have any problems. They just do it on their own at the worst possible time. We didn't try to control when they were going to birth or anything. They did it like right in a snowstorm every single time.
Yeah, I've lost a couple to freezing. Like they drop it like 2 a.m. and it's like, I don't know, negative degrees outside or, very close to it. And I lose them. I go out there and they're frozen, but it's rare, but it does happen.
I've also only had singles. I haven't had any twins or triplets either.
How old are your ewes?
They're young. This is the set. They're 2 years old now. Yeah.
Yeah. They should start, if they don't drop doubles by next year or this next cycle, then yeah, you should. Yeah. Well, listen, I'm of the opinion, sink or swim,
Yep.
if you don't make it, you don't make it. I just don't have time. I'm a single dad, and so I homeschool my kids, and we got lots of other projects going on around here. I can't be. I know it's like a bottle baby, right? But there's no bottle babies here.
Nope.
There's one here. I didn't think there would be, but we really want one more female.
So. You know, the benefit of having those things is they're so cute and they're like so personable. After that, they can be like your pet. You can almost bring them in the house and let them run around, whatever, because they've had that care, that one-on-one personal interaction that other animals will never get. And so, but again, I just don't have the time, to do that.
Yeah, I'm glad that she will be more handleable because all of our other ones are terrified of us. And so every time we have to catch them for whatever, like I had to pull the two stillborn, we had to catch her still. And even though she wasn't feeling well, she did not want me doing that until it was done. And then she was like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad.
Well, another thing that will benefit you by is that once that sheep grows up and it has this familiarity with you and this relationship with you, that will rub off on the other sheep. The sheep will say, oh, that sheep trusts you, so maybe I should trust you too. And so it'll actually help you have a better relationship and overall experience with your herd, I think.
Yeah, but we're not planning to keep her offspring. So her offspring, probably not. Well, we'll see. She might. I think our plan was with her is we process all the offspring just in case there's a genetic reason that the mom didn't keep her.
Okay, yeah.
But she was one of 3, so there's a practical reason the mom didn't keep her for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll find it. We had another one with a prolapse who was not pregnant in prolapse, so we just processed her. I was like, I don't even want to try to deal. Like, I know how to deal with that.
Yeah, but a prolapse will automatically be a cull in my herd.
That's what happened.
And then if a triplet though is totally normal. If a lot of times a triplet won't make it, so one of them will not make it. You'll have one that's weaker than the other two, and so but yeah, that's totally normal. So keeping her, if you keep a triplet, there's no reason to think if it's a woman, if it's a female, there's no reason to think that she won't be a bad. She'll probably be a good mom down the road.
Yeah, probably.
And I've had triplets make it. So we just had triplets on one of my sheep this last year, and all 3 did perfectly fine.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I've got one mom raising 3 over there, and then the other mom out of the chute was like, not you. I was like, well, now we have a decision to make if we're willing to put in the work, and I may not ever do this again.
And it's expensive, right? Like, how much is that feed?
It's like, so this is really cool. So it's about $70 for what it will take to feed her. I found a local sheep farmer who's milking his sheep.
Okay, that's good.
So I have actual lamb milk coming today, and I have to decide how to, because you can't just do that. You can't just change like that. So I have to decide what we do about that. But
because if you buy the milk replacer or the lamb milk at the store in powdered form, that stuff is expensive.
It is expensive. Yeah.
Will they not take goat's milk? That won't happen. They won't do it.
Doesn't have enough fat. So if you use goat's milk, you need to up the fat content of it. I've learned a lot about milk in the last 7 days.
Yeah, that animal would be dog food here.
Yeah.
Sink or swim.
Yeah, well, and she may, we don't know if she got enough colostrum on day 1, and the vet said you won't know for 2 weeks, and then you might just come out and she's dead.
Yeah.
That could still happen, and then it's been all the effort for nothing. And so we had to have a holler neighbor meeting because I live around multiple families who work together, and I was like, are we willing to do this?
Yeah.
And because if not, then so we decided to do it this time, and we'll see how it goes.
I tell people, man, get involved. Even if you raise just a couple, you're now declaring food independence, right? And I just saw someone comment, Grafted and Grace, my bottle babies help tame the herd. It does work. It does work. But I tell people, get that independence, start small. Chickens are usually the entry-level drug. Sheep, I listen, I know people out there, they love their goats. But if you do goats, and then you move to sheep, you'll be like, wow, this is a world of difference.
Yes. Yeah, we had goats.
Yeah, it's like the first time you walk outside your door and they're standing on top of your car. Usually that's it.
Every car, all of them, they were on top of it.
A sheep will never do that. So it's like I tell people, just save yourself the headache and go with sheep. Go get a few of those. They respect boundaries really, really well, whereas goats do not. I tell people goats are like drunk teenagers, who found the keys to daddy's liquor cabinet.
They don't test your fences. I've never come out and their head's been stuck in the fence. None of that happens with sheep.
Never. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, but just starting small and getting your feet wet and that knowledge and experience when it comes to food independence, you're really declaring war on the system. And I mean, the WEF, the World Economic Forum, has made, they're open and honest. They're telling you, we don't want you to be responsible for these things. We want to do that stuff for you, and we want you to be happy with it.
Yeah, they tell you about their plans, man. They put them all out there. They telegraph the punch every time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we
Crazy
should
stuff.
Yeah, maybe we should believe it.
Oh, we should. Absolutely, we should.
Yeah. Yeah, back to the sheep, man. If you need to build soil and you don't have enough land or grass for a cow, you can do that with sheep. Like you can run those sheep over there, man. They will build that soil up.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and if you need to do something with it, you can actually pick it up. Like that's what I like about them. Like I've been hesitant for cattle because they're giant, and we also don't have the land for it here at the moment. But also, like I have to trick that thing into thinking it needs to respect me, and if it decides to lean, what am I going to do about
it's
that?
all over.
1,200 pounds. I mean, on the other side, their demeanor is such that they are gentle if you raise them right. But
I've always wanted to have those Highlanders. They say those are really great with kids.
Yep.
And they're really docile. And it's just where I live, it's so hot that you need to give them a pond to soak in, and they have tick problems because we have ticks here. And so, but I don't think it worked good for my area, but they're amazing with children. But if you live in an area more up north and you have some ponds and it doesn't get, super hot like it does here in the South, those Highlanders are fantastic, and they're small, so they're manageable.
Yeah, they're for sale everywhere. The babies actually cost more than the adults do.
Yeah.
People get those things, and then when they get a little bigger, man, you can get them inexpensively. They're all over the place.
And the meat is fantastic. I heard great things about the meat, and then the hides, because a lot of times people don't care about the cow hides, but the hides on a Highlander will bring money.
The Dexters are also smaller, which are that's the one that around here a lot of people are very interested in, the Dexters.
Yeah, that's again, it's just about getting your feet wet and getting some experience. Start small, but declare your independence by just at least getting started on some level.
If nothing, grow a garden. If nothing else, plant something.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you've never done it, just plant something. That will be the fuse right there. Just plant something.
And these animals that you do bring onto your homestead, you begin to experiment with. You can use their manure, that they produce to put in your garden to supplement your garden. Even chicken, as hot as it is, like you're growing grass. So years ago, someone said, Zach, if you want to be a good sheep farmer, you need to be a good grass farmer. And so we're raising quail also. And I took some of the quail. We had like 3 buckets of quail manure that were taken from the cages, and I put it on some of the grass out in one of my fields. And you can tell where I put that down because it's rained a couple times since. The grass is so green where I put that down. You're not going to burn the grass. Or if you raise corn, you can put that chicken manure right on the corn and it will not burn it. Things like tomatoes, cucumbers, other stuff like that, or you can't do that. You'll kill your plants. But like sorghum, corn, or just grass that you're using to feed your sheep, to be able to get that lush, full grass, use all that chicken manure. Clean out your coop, save it, don't throw it away, and then use that to grow something that can feed your other animals.
Now, here's a question. I was listening to something this morning about positive things from alpacas. Do you have any information on those?
My personal opinion on alpacas, and what's the other one too?
Llamas.
They're cute animals. They look great. And actually they're really good guard animals for like a sheep herd. However, they do require maintenance. And the first thing we got involved in was Shropshire sheep. And the Shropshire sheep have to be sheared. And that's a lot of work. And let me just tell you that the people who shear sheep, those people are artists. It takes a lot of time and a lot of experience to do this, do it right, and not hurt the animal. And so if you're like us, you got involved with that one time and you hurt a few of your animals, and it just breaks your heart because it's not a nick. It's like really bad. You have to shear those animals. And that's something I don't want to be involved in. I don't have that kind of time. If I had the time to get good with it, then maybe, but an alternative, if you want a guard animal, a really good guard animal would be a donkey, because a llama has this benefit that you don't have to feed it. It eats grass like everything else. Okay. But a donkey also eats grass. You don't have to buy a special feed, and it's a fantastic garden animal. It's got to be a female donkey. It's got to be I forgot what they call it, a mammoth donkey, I think is the breed. But a female donkey is fantastic at protecting a herd. They will kill coyotes. They will kill mountain lions. They're fantastic at protecting your herd. So I would choose, and I don't have to shear it. So I would choose a guard donkey before I would choose a llama or an alpaca.
Yeah, didn't Greg Judy said almost 50% of food input goes to producing wool on a sheep like that? Shepherdness has some great videos where she breaks down all of the math, has all the numbers in there on those.
I love her videos.
A sheep too will uncover feed in the winter. It'll move snow to eat grass that's under there where a cow will not.
Yeah, we would shear our sheep when we had the Shropshire sheep back in the day. And again, you can't, it's a commercial breed, so you have to use drugs to keep it alive. So that was a big thing we didn't like. But when we did shear the sheep, it sold on eBay within minutes.
Really?
I mean, the wool sells quick. It doesn't really sell for a price that makes it all economically feasible or worth it. Especially the trouble and time you put into it, and hurting the animals because you don't have any experience or knowledge when it comes to that. But it does sell. There's definitely a market. There are people out there who will buy that in a minute.
Yeah, I've seen somebody saying that donkeys will murder your baby goats. Man, I've seen a lot of videos of donkeys grabbing babies and throwing them up like 10, 15 feet in the air.
All right, you have to get the females. You have to get the females. They'll less likely to do that during lambing. Excuse me. I should have had that water you told me to get earlier.
You need to go get it. Go get it.
That's all right. The lambing, you need to have your lambs separated anyway for that first few days. But usually a female donkey will be a lot better protected, especially if you get a young female donkey. But if you get a female donkey, yes, she can tear up your herd. Or a male donkey will tear up your herd. But you got to get them young, and you get them a female, and it usually is a lot better outcome.
Interesting.
Everybody I've ever talked to who raised llamas or anything of that nature, alpacas, I've then seen them either post very publicly how much they regret having made that decision, or they tell me that they're like, yeah, we're getting rid of them. So I have no personal experience with them, but when people that you know and trust are telling you bad idea, like they did for me with goats, they were right. Mm-hmm. The goats taught me everything I know about fencing. And they've been on my roof of my house more than one time.
I think it comes down to size of land too. Like anytime you compress all of that into a smaller area, every problem you have is drastically amplified. Whereas if you look at the amount of animals Barry's got out there, he can just paddock shift them. He doesn't have to move, wire. I mean, you know how long it takes to move electro wire every day. Barry doesn't have to do any of that stuff. He just cuts down some trees and they eat the leaves off of them, and he moves them from area to area. And it just makes everything easier when you have more land.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah, it does. The other thing about the donkey is that they will kill snakes. We would walk around our property and see dead copperheads just laying around because the donkey had found it and stomped it into the dirt.
I hadn't heard that. That's good information.
Mm-hmm.
We use dogs. We use fences to keep dogs in, and dogs keep predators. But our predator load here is very low. It's just coyotes. But aerial predators, like we've had hawks come down and stuff. Yeah. Guineas have a very specific alert, and my dogs have gotten hold of a hawk. They've chased an eagle off. So anything in the fence line, we have zero predation now.
It's awesome.
Wildlife says that we have no less than DNA on no less than 9 mountain lions in the area. Of course they know that because they released them. So that
officially where we live, there are no mountain lions, but everyone around here knows better.
You're like, look, my game camera told me a different story.
And we got pigs on the way. Pigs will be here sooner than later. They're moving this direction.
Yeah. I thought you meant you were getting pigs, and I was very surprised to hear that.
No, my neighbor has a ton of pigs. I don't have to have pigs.
I don't either. They moved off. Okay, here's a really good question. I have moved around the country multiple times. It takes a long time for the locals to accept you. Not easy. Ham radio does help. Church can help. Any pointers on this?
Yeah, get involved in your community. Get involved in your community. Work at we moved here. We got involved with a food bank at a ministry down the road and volunteered every week and get to know your neighbors. You move into a new place. cook up a apple pie or some cookies and bring them over to your neighbors and, let them know that, hey, if there's ever anything you need, we're here to help. And I think a lot of the neighbors around here have the same thing. If there's ever anything I can help you with, just let me know. Because there's going to be good fences make good neighbors, as the saying goes. So just, work with your neighbors, be open to that. And I know some people today can be unreasonable, but it's good fences make good neighbors. Be friendly, get involved in your community and talk to people. And here's the deal. Don't sell a multi-million-dollar house in the city and then move into the country and drive your Lexus down the road. And that's your vehicle, and put up a bunch of lights and around and just light up people live in the country because they like to. If you want to have that city life and city experience, move back to the city. Don't bring that to the country, because if you do, people are going to look at you like drive your rusty old pickup, buy a pickup truck that's rust on it, a good truck, and, drive that. But don't drive some of these, don't come into the country, the country town, small country town, driving your Lexus or your, what's the other one out there that everyone always drives? I can't remember the name now.
No help at all right now.
It's escaping me. But anyway, don't drive your G-Wagon into the it's not going to work,
Just add value. If you talk to older people, they like to talk. Just listen to them. You don't even have to interject. Just listen to them. If you see somebody doing something, stop and assist. If they're doing yard work or they're moving something, every group has a local area Facebook group. When you see people asking for help, just show up and help. You don't you don't have to charge anything. You will quickly be accepted. You can,
right.
It's very easy. Like if you move from the city, you move for a reason. Just remember that when you come to the middle of nowhere. It is amazing. It's actually baffling how many people have moved to this most impoverished county of all of Tennessee, and they want to know why we don't have a bowling alley or a roller skating rink or a local. We had those things. They went out of business. You guys won't buy 40-cent coffee. There's no way you're going to start a third gym. It's just, it's not going to work. You moved here for a reason. Just remember that and just add value. Just help people and don't expect anything for it. You'll be surprised what happens rather quickly for you.
Have the self-reflection to take inventory of the people and the things around you, and then try to blend. When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Yeah.
Well, if you're moving to the country, if you stand out, everyone's going to see it. Everyone's going to know, and you're going to be different, and they're not going to accept you. But yeah, people like nice people. And if you can be a nice person, they'll be more open to deal with you. Like I have people down the road who they make sourdough bread. And so I buy sourdough bread from them. And there's people down the road who sell me raw milk. I used to have a milk cow, not anymore. There's too much going on, but she has cows and she sells her raw milk and I buy it. And so it's like, I think one of our founders of our country said, you don't need to have peace treaties with other nations. I forgot which founder said that. What you want to do to establish good relations is to conduct business with other nations, because when you're making money and they're making money, everyone gets along better. And so, and you're less likely to go to war, because when the gravy train's running, you don't want to stop the gravy train. And so if you're supporting your neighbors by buying eggs or milk or things you can't produce on your homestead from them, and they're buying things from you, and they're seeing that cooperation, you get along with people pretty well that way.
And I think it's very important to want to get along. If somebody says something you don't agree with, you don't actually have to correct them. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Just, if it's not important, why do you need to, why even have that conversation? And it's also okay to be you. If you are uniquely who you are, and it is a little different, what happens locally is, around here, they'll say, you're not from here, are you? Right? The guy who built my house immigrated from Germany when he was 5 years old and was raised in our country. And he is still referred to as the German, fondly by the people. He's just, it's his thing. I'm the weird one that came from Oregon who asked for organic feed before anybody even thought about doing it here. And they just thought it was funny. And be able to take that ribbing, because that's the other thing, is just because somebody says something like that, calls you the German or that weird organic crunchy chick from Oregon. Okay, yeah. But I care about you. And when somebody's house burns down, I'm the first one there with some blankets or something to help the people who have to rebuild. And that endures over time. The other thing is, a week in, yeah, they haven't accepted you yet because they don't even know if you're going to be there. And it takes time, and it's okay for it to take time. You take time too when you meet new people to get to know them.
Right. Absolutely. You don't know who's crazy in this world today anymore.
100%. Yeah. Mike says, unfortunately, I stand out by homesteading. Yeah.
Well, it depends on where you're homesteading. Around here, that's just a lifestyle. People have been doing it there's a woman down the road, and she's like, I didn't leave town. I never even went to town, which is the nearest town 30 minutes away, until she was like 15 years old. So homesteading here is just a lifestyle, you know.
Yes, it is. How are you doing on time, Zach? I wasn't sure.
I'm doing good. I mean, I can go a little bit longer.
Okay, perfect. Just making sure. Okay, so was it looking at society that made you go into homesteading, or were you already sort of homestead interested?
There was a number of reasons. The biggest reason was, again, I did the math on, 2007, 2008 was really an awakening for us. So I don't know if you know, my wife died of cancer in 2019. So back when we were deciding this together, and back in 2009, we saw the math. Again, we're how many $1 trillion in debt back then? It's gotten even worse now, but like, there's no way to fix this. I mean, I saw what happened in 2008, and all they did was just print a bunch of money to fix it. I'm like, that's not sustainable. Let's get out. And plus, we saw the trajectory of the moral decline in our country. We knew that's not going to change. And then, the homeschooling, we were like, I don't want to send my kids to public school. It'd be better if we could have a place where they could run around and not have to worry about weirdos, like we do today when you live in the suburbs or in the city. And so there was a lot of things. And then finally the food, it was like, we know that food was getting more and more processed. There was more and more chemicals being added to things. And I'm like, well, we want to be able to be in a place where we can raise some of this ourselves. I have a freezer full of grass-fed beef and grass-fed lamb that's what we eat, And so I wanted to be able to do that, but I couldn't do that where I lived, at least not as easily as I can do here. And so weighing all of those things, we're like, okay, let's pop smoke and get out of Dodge. And I didn't think I was going to be coming to Arkansas, but we had some people we knew that lived down here, and we eventually found our own place and got to be where we're at today. And so we've been doing this we've been off grid since 2012. I haven't had an electric bill since 2012, and I love it.
I just want everybody to take note of how big his grin was when he said that about it got bigger.
It's crazy. I can't believe how much people pay for their electric bill every month. It's insane.
Anything you would do different if you were starting over in the same place?
I think, yes, I would have. The first thing there's a lot of things, but the first thing that pops to mind when you ask that question is, I think I would have strategically, because we did this with my late wife's in-laws. We all moved. They have their own house, and we have our own house, and we're on the same property. But I think I would have strategically tried to coordinate the homestead a little bit better when it comes to fencing. We just kind of threw up some fences because we were kind of make a corral, and I think I would have put some more planning into how we would have arranged that. And so right now in the summertime, the sheep, when we let them out, because right now they're all penned up in their acre, with hay and everything. But I let them out, and they graze the whole homestead, right?
Yeah.
So, but they're running through the housing area. I think I would have arranged it better and planned better so the housing area was off limits to animals. At least not the chickens, but the sheep.
Yeah, I say we have I spend as much money fencing the place as the property cost. But once it's done, man, people are like, what should I do? I'm like, put up fencing. If you can put up fencing, fence it, and then you can cross fence it where we need. But fences and gates, man, they take care of every problem you have. They keep dogs in and they keep people out. And there's I was just looking for this place, or I'm here by accident. No, that changes everything with fences and gates.
The good thing about sheep, though, is that we have fences around that basically define our property and our property limits. And a lot of that fence in places is down. Animals or anybody can walk right over it. And so at some point I'll go through and fix all those things. But I've had sheep since I've been here, and they respect the boundaries. I mean, they know where they can go and they know where they can't go. And very rarely will they go outside those boundaries. And us have to go get them or get them back on the property. So that's one of the things about sheep. But if you have goats and other animals, cows, especially cows, will absolutely run through the forest and they will be gone. So, I mean, you're smiling because you know that. So it's like, I've had cows before too, right? Yeah, they do that. Goats as well. So
I moderate our county's Facebook group, and last week there was a picture of cattle on somebody's front yard, and it just said, "If anybody's missing 3 cows, I have found them." And that's what I was laughing about, because you're not always expecting, because it's very rural here, but there's town, and you don't usually have cattle on your front yard in the town. But
yeah,
last week they did.
It's like that, and because my sheep don't go outside the boundaries, but like other animals from other homesteads, like I've had cows come on my place, and they get on because the fences are down. I had a horse, I think, come through once. It's like, it happens. But the sheep just put so much less stress on my life. I don't think I'll ever get rid of my sheep.
Yeah, the sheep are great. I agree. I wished I had listened to Nick Ferguson when he told me to get sheep years ago, and I got goats instead. I was like, no, I don't want sheep. I don't want to have to handle sheep. And I'm like, man,
that should have been a clue.
Past Nicole was wrong. She was wrong about that.
You people who have goats, you have no idea how hard you make your lives.
Yeah, that should have been a clue when I gave away 23 goats.
Yeah, I have one of yours.
No, it's I guess there's a lot of things I would change, but that'd be the number one, is to plan your homestead accordingly, strategically. Think about it a little bit about how you want this to take inventory. And that's one of the reasons I do a consulting. I've had a number of consulting clients that I take on. You can find that information on anamericanhomestead.com, where I try to get people to think about these things when they're new to a homestead and before they start getting in too deep to where it actually costs them more money to fix some of the things that they didn't think about before.
What's that look like? Do you come out to on site for them, or do you do that through?
I can do virtual or I do on site. I've done a number of both, and I love going to people's places because I love seeing what they're doing. People are so innovative, and it's like to see what some people come up with. It's just fascinating. I did one not that long ago for a guy who just finished putting solar panels on his place. I'm going to talk about that on my channel here soon, but I've done a number of visits and I've done a number of virtuals, and everyone has their own slice of heaven that they're trying to make into something great and fantastic. And sometimes they just need a little bit of experience to come alongside them and to, point them in a few directions.
I'll bet you get to
see the outside view of somebody else's perspective who's not emotionally attached to whatever weird decision you made on your homestead is very helpful.
Yeah.
Like, I think no matter if you are the best homestead planner in the world, having that second opinion when it's yours is a huge boost.
Yeah. Well, it's like, again, we all learned by having goats the first time. We didn't know. I had goats on 2 separate occasions. That's how I know.
Yeah. But somebody told us not to, and we did it anyway.
Yeah. Well, you learn through pain and suffering is a great teacher. So
yeah, man. Yeah. I'll bet you've seen some cool things that you can take back and just instantly implement into your own program too.
Oh yeah. Well, I do. I learn from others too. I mean, that's one of the ways. Being a great learner, you become a great learner when you become a teacher. So there's no better way to learn something than to teach it and to help educate others. So I've learned a lot from so many people who on their own homesteads. I only do stuff in the Ozarks because I don't like flying. And if you haven't heard, airplanes are flying apart mid-flight. So I really don't want to get on an airplane today. But no, it's like, yeah, you see what they're doing, and sometimes you take back and you look at a lesson that was learned by someone else, and I can now implement what they've learned through some other client who comes to me and asks information about whatever they were doing, So it's the information shared can be enormous.
Would you do your solar today exactly how you did, or would you use something a little different now? The systems are so plug and play now.
Yes. So I would definitely I had no choice really back then because I was limited by funds and finances. A lot of people don't have the time and resources, the money to put all that together the way I have it now. I certainly didn't. So the best way I tell people to get started with solar, especially if you're on a very small budget, is to just incrementally work it up. And a lot of this stuff can be added on to, put together modularly, and you can upgrade different modules when you're ready and financially available to have those funds to do that. But the recent guy, he had a lot of money. He had sold off some investments and things like that. And so he bought everything, really, at the get-go. But again, a lot of people don't have that option. So start small, work your way up. And there are great ways to do that. I even have a solar guy that I work with here in the Ozarks that I recommend people get in touch with if it's possible. But having those resources helps out a lot of people. Having that experience helps out a lot of people because there's a lot of money that can be lost if you do things the wrong way with solar. And like you said, there's so many options today that are plug and play. Before, you had to buy a combiner box, you had to buy the solar panels, you had to buy the charge controller, you had to buy the inverter, you had to buy all these different things. Where nowadays they sell like these boxes, like these all-in-one inverters. And now they sell with the Blue Yetis and some of these other options that you have where it's everything, the batteries, everything rolled into one. And you can stack these and daisy chain them to where you can power an entire house. The more money you spend, the more options you get, obviously, like with anything. But no, there's anyone can do this. Anyone can do it. The one thing I caution people often is if you want to go off grid, if your goal is to go off grid, don't buy a homestead and buy property and then connect to the grid, because getting disconnected from the grid is a lot harder than going off grid from the start and then piecemealing your way up. Even if you can't afford it. I know you can't afford some giant system. Then fine, go off grid and then piecemeal your way up, because in a lot of places, there are even ordinances and laws that don't allow you to unplug and go off grid later. So I tell people to take all of that into account.
Yep.
But the good news is, even if you're in one of those places and on grid, you can go off grid on the other side of your panel in many places without
if it allows it. But there's even ordinances against that sometimes.
Yeah,
you can
want to look at that.
Yes, look and do your research. But there are switches that you can install, and I've seen this done many times, where you can switch between on grid and off grid. Like if the grid goes down, you can just switch back to your system and be okay. But there are some places where ordinances, you're not even allowed to install a switch like that unless you hire some journeyman to come out and do it for you, or some places you're not allowed to have that at all, no matter what.
Yeah, it's like a transfer switch for a generator, so you're not regenerating the line.
Right.
Yep.
You got to make sure you do it right.
What are some things about homesteading that you were pleasantly surprised at, if you look back at your journey, based on what you were expecting versus how it was?
How much fun it is. Like, I still drive. Listen, a lot of people would, I think, come out to where I live and be like, well, I couldn't drive that every day back and forth to work. If they do work, or if they do have to make trips to town for certain things, they would get tired of that. And a lot of people do. They come out here, it's culture shock for them, and then they move back to the city after a couple of years. I think I have been pleasantly surprised by how much I still love it out here. I have to pinch myself sometimes that I get to live here. It's just, I would never live anywhere else.
Well, it's like you said, I don't drive it every day. I don't have to. I'll go 2 weeks and not even leave this property. I'll have to walk around to see. I'm like, did somebody take my truck? Oh, I left it on the other side of the building.
Yeah, I know. I tell people I see more deer than people on most days. So
yeah.
Are you guys are heating with wood? You got stove heat? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I got the wood stove going in now because the temperatures kind of dropped over the last couple of days. And so hopefully this will be the last, they call it shoulder season, where you burn maybe a little bit of wood in the morning and a little bit of wood in the evening. But it got kind of warm there for a while, but now it got down in the upper 20s last night. So we had to put a couple logs on the fire and keep it going. It's going right now. Yeah.
Wait, that means that's hitting us next, John.
Well, we got up, we were 79 degrees and all of our trees put on flowers. And then we were 28 degrees for a day, and we lost a lot of the peach trees lost their bloom.
Yeah.
But I think we're probably okay. I think we're
good. My peach tree is suffering. I'm sure it won't produce fruit because we got that late freeze and we had the blossoms out there, and I was like, oh man, I'm just going to cut that thing down and put pear trees. Everyone says pear trees do really well around here, so I'm going to plant a bunch of pear trees.
We put in a ton of figs because we get so much off of those fig trees.
Yeah, I love the figs.
We put 36 more in last year. We've already put 30 more in this year. We did the Chicago cold hardies. So they're supposed to be more cold tolerant. And then our apples typically implode, but I keep hearing Arkansas, so we're going to put a bunch of these Arkansas apples
Arkansas black
that are supposed to be rust resistant. Yeah, because we got all cedar trees.
I killed one of those last year in my food forest. We put it
I've
in.
never heard of the Arkansas black.
These varieties. Yeah, Arkansas blacks are supposed to be cedar apple rust resistant. Yep. So I put one in and I killed it in 1 year with cedar apple rust.
Really? Yeah. William and Billy Bond, man, they swear by those. So does Kerry Brown.
Wait a minute. You said you killed one of the Arkansas ones with cedar rust?
Yeah. The ones that are it's just my property has very heavy pressure. So apples and pears do not do well here, but plums and peaches and cherries can do well.
So
I was talked into the Arkansas black by somebody just to give it a shot. And
it got cedar
rust?
In
my case, it just didn't. It was, maybe if it had not gotten hit so hard its first year, it would have been fine. But we also do the stun method around here. So
Yeah, we have big problem with cedar rust here. We tried growing apples. It didn't work out at all. So
my trees do great. We just don't get a crop off of them. They'll put the apples on and then the apple just, it just collapses when about the time it looks pretty good, we lose them all. But the trees are all in place. Like we've never had an apple tree die. We just don't get a crop off of it. And I don't want to spray them. So we've never really, I can pick them early and eat them and they taste more like a potato than an apple.
Well, I've had a number of diseases and I've learned a lot since then. Someone suggested a couple of years ago to put raw milk at the base of your tree and that calcium or your ground up chicken egg shells and let that soak into your ground, ground it up into a powder with like a magic bullet or something. And that calcium will cure a lot of diseases and it works. I was pleasantly surprised. I cured peach leaf curl with it and some other things. But it's that added calcium that the trees soak up and they milk absolutely works. It was unbelievable.
I'll try that.
I'll give that a shot. Yeah. I've also been looking at the lactobacillus that comes when you make whey, when you're making cheese. Mm-hmm. So putting the whey out to see if that will add some resistance.
Yeah, it can't hurt. Whey is fantastic for as a growing supplement.
Mm-hmm. Fish like it too, as it turns out.
How do you feed it to fish?
Well, I have an aquaponics system, so I just put it in there and they go nuts.
Oh, the whey, the liquid whey?
Yeah, I know. Well, so the whey has some chunks. They'll go for the chunks, but they just, Wow. When you put whey in, they're like, so it must have tiny little specks. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Interesting. That's pretty
cool. You were saying about manures earlier. I've got, 40 adult rabbits and probably 100 in boxes right now, babies. And we keep all of those just for the manure. We keep
that's the best manure.
Cement trays, and then we've got a 10 by 10 compost bin that's just full of rabbit manure. So we just top dress around all the trees. We top dress all the raised beds, and it just works amazing. It works.
Yeah, great. The rabbit manure. I tell people that's the best. There's number one manure, it's rabbit manure.
Yeah, the manure is worth more than the rabbits. We can scale and have 1,000 of them in 6 months if we need to, but we just keep them as meat on the hoof just for the manure.
Mm-hmm. No, the manure is fantastic. The best thing you can do is like people say, a first year garden, you really can't do well. And that's not true. If you put rabbit manure on it, you can do an amazing first year garden with just rabbit manure.
Yeah, we do the babies. We put them in tractors, and then I've got a bunch. I'll run 50 chickens in a tractor or 50 meat birds. And like you were saying, how you can progressively see them grow, the green, I call it voltage, right? So day one, when we move it, that's 1 volt. Day 30 from where it was is like 30 volts. And when we put the drone up, you can progressively just watch the color scale of the green. You get the 60 days, man. It's just a complete, it's like 100 volts compared to 1 volt as we move those birds across the ground.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so cool. Oh,
yeah. Well, why don't we go once around the horn, guys, and we'll get on with our homesteads. Why don't we start with you, John?
Guys, I do a live video every single night, every day of the year at 9 o'clock on the YouTube channel. I've got 5,000 actual videos. We do 5 video series and 2 podcasts every week. SOE Tactical Gear is the name of my company. That's the name on every social media platform. If you see somebody interact with you on social media, that typically is me. So jump on there and we'll see you tonight at 9 o'clock.
All right. Zach, go for it.
Yeah, you can find me at anamericanhomestead.com. I'm on Twitter. Join me on Twitter. That's growing pretty good. And then also patreon.com/An-American-Homestead. We give away a lot of these things like I was talking about earlier. These books, if you buy them on Amazon, they're like $1,000 a piece. And it's not how to make a tincture. There's plenty of information on how to make tinctures. This is what to do with the tinctures once you make them. And so we give away that to all of our patrons, no matter what level you join at. And we have a lot of good stuff on there right now. We're doing ham radio communications and a lot of other stuff on there. So check it out. That's about it. Join me on Twitter.
Yeah, and those 2 books are worth the cost of admission for the Patreon guys, because the hardest thing to find information-wise on herbal remedies is how to use them.
Yes. What to use them for.
What to use them for. Like, there's all of these rumors out there, and the way the internet works, people see something somebody said and they repeat it. And if it was wrong, then they repeat something that was wrong because they're not verifying information. So getting that source information is huge.
It's absolutely source information. That's correct.
So I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast. And if you haven't gotten your coffee order in yet this week, you need to get it in by Friday at hollowroast.com, because we will not be roasting next week because we're getting ready for the Self-Reliance Festival. And I will be at John Willis's getting all the tents set up and those sorts of things. So check that out at hollowroast.com. And if you haven't grabbed your tickets, it's selfreliancefestival.com. We'll see you next week, guys.
See you guys.